I don't care to live up to anyone's standards but my own.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today we are going to be looking at Yahoo and their rankings. They have been released. You can do mock drafts, you can reactivate your league over on Yahoo, and we're going to be looking at their initial rankings, and some guys I think are ranked too high, some guys I think are ranked too low at the moment. Of course, all of this is subject to change as things go on. Michael Bolton, he wants to hear about it.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Indeed. So first of all, just a quick thing with Yahoo. Apparently they are changing this year the ability for you to alter the playoff dates. I can't believe it has taken this long, but here we are. They have finally made that change. As I tweeted this out yesterday, and some people got pushback. There are three things I believe minimum three things, but three things I believe that you should change every time you start a new fantasy league as a commissioner. Number one, change the end of the playoffs. Change when it finishes. Now, I think that you should be at the bare minimum going to March 29th as the last day in the head-to-head playoffs. Mine are all gone to March 22nd. That's where I believe you should be finishing leagues, March 22nd. So change your playoff date. The second thing is that you should be changing in your fantasy leagues. Do not have league votes for trades. It is an absolutely horrible system. League vetoes are a disgrace and should never happen in any fantasy league. You should do commissioner-only vetoes. The commissioner basically pushes through everything unless there is collusion. Unless players are cheating, then you don't put that trade through, you cancel it, and then you kick those guys out at some point if it continues to happen. But, I think this team might be getting a better end of the bargain. No, you don't veto it. No, you don't vote. You do not have voting on trades. It screws up leagues. Do not have it. Number one. That's number two. And number three, Yahoo's default setting is still 2 centers. No reason for it. Make it 1 center and 3 utility spots. There is absolutely no reason in a league that does de-emphasize centers, and plenty of times you have no center lineups. Why do we have 2 centers as the default spot, but 1 point guard, 1 shooting guard, 1 small forward, 1 power forward? Yes, you do have the guard position, you have the forward position, but even so, if doing that, that still means that you've got 1.5 point guards, 1.5 shooting guards, 1.5 small forwards, 1.5 power forwards, and again, 2 centers. Why do we need it? Either change the forward spot to a forward center spot and change that other center spot to a utility spot. There is no reason to completely overemphasize the center position in your fantasy lineup. Some people go without any positions at all. Some people go all generic position, guards, forwards, and center, which is totally fine as well. But I do not think there is any reason to have 2 centers as your default scenario. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But that's that. Let's talk about these guys now on Yahoo, who I do think are ranked high in their initial ranks. Again, some of this stuff may change, but you might be able to get some value when looking at drafts and doing your league early from some guys who I believe are ranked too high over on Yahoo. So there's a list over there on the video you can see there. But let's start with Russell Westbrook at number 14 on Yahoo. Not that I think Westbrook is going to be bad. And in a points league, his value does rise, but I don't think that he is a borderline first-round guy, which is what these rankings are saying, especially if you don't feel comfortable taking Joel Embiid or Kawhi Leonard or Paul George in the first round. That would actually push Westbrook into that first-round discussion, and I don't think that's the case. In fact, I think Westbrook is more of a back-end second, start of the third round sort of a guy this year. I don't think he averages a triple-double. I'm not all that worried about the usage drop because he took a big usage drop last season playing with Paul George. That did drop pretty significantly, and I think he still will have a decent usage, but I don't think that he will be getting as many assists this season because, of course, James Harden is a far superior ball handler to what Paul George was, and Harden is still going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And the rebounds, I don't think he'll be given as much leeway to go as aggressively after rebounds as what he did in Oklahoma City. So I don't think that Westbrook should be that guy that's at the fringe of the first round. Kemba Walker at 16, I believe, is too high as well. I've talked about this in the past. He was on a team, Charlotte, that had nobody else. He was taking every single shot. And while Boston is not, they did lose players, Al Horford and Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward's still there. Jason Tatum's still there. Jaylen Brown is still there. These guys are going to take shots. So Kemba is not going to be putting up a usage of 32% that he did last season. And that made him the 20th ranked player overall. So Yahoo not only thinks that he's going to be able to maintain that, but actually improve from that. I don't see that. So 16 to me is an overreach for Kemba Walker. I also think Rudy Gobert is ranked a little bit high over on Yahoo at number 19. I've got him down significantly from there, and I think there will be a bit of a drop in usage for Gobert. Not that he's a high usage player, but even so, a drop in usage does have an impact with Mike Conley coming along. Last year, he was the 22nd ranked player. He was scored 16 points per game with 13 rebounds. It's also that I think there are some other players who might step up because rankings are all relative as well. It's not like, well, if you do the exact same thing that you did one year and do the same thing the next year, it doesn't mean that your rank is going to come out exactly the same. There are other factors that are involved in that. Other players stepping up, other players getting more numbers in some of those categories that you excel at can also push you back down as well. So I don't think that Gobert is necessarily going to come out and be significantly worse. It's just that I think there might be some guys that do jump ahead of him this season and push that number down. So I think 19 is probably a little bit too high for Rudy Gobert. I also think that Benny Simmons coming in at number 22 on Yahoo is a little bit aggressive. Simmons does have no Jimmy Butler there, of course, no JJ Redick, but we're going to get a full season of Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson, Al Horford. All these guys are involved there. I just don't see Simmons, and I don't see taking Simmons in the second round as really the way to go. He was 26th ranked as a rookie. He was 34th last season. I think he can get better than those 2 years. I think his assist numbers will rise back up. I think his scoring and that will rise back up. I think he'll be a better free throw shooter. But again, will he take enough of a leap to get into that second round range? I'm not so sure that it's a... Okay, let's rephrase it. I think he could be that guy. I don't think it's worth taking the risk of picking him at that spot for that to be a useful selection for Ben Simmons at that spot. I also think Lamarcus Aldridge of the San Antonio Spurs is a little bit too high. Yahoo's got him as the 35th best player. Now, he did surprise me a little bit last season. Put up some pretty good numbers for the Spurs. I'm not sure that I'm going to see him being a guy I want to take in the third round. Now, of course, there is value in what Lamarcus Aldridge brings, being a hyper-efficient big man in terms of free throw shooting and field goal percentage. So I think there is still some value in Lamarcus Aldridge there, but I'm not sure that with DeJounte Murray returning, we know how aggressive of a rebounder Murray is, and if they play more of those two big lineups with Aldridge and Poeltl, which they didn't at the beginning of last season, maybe that hurts his overall rebound numbers, and that could be enough to drop him back down quite a bit there. Kristaps Porzingis. They've got Yahoo's got him at 36. On a per game basis, I think that's fine. It's not far off where I've got him, but on a totals perspective, with games missed, with rest, with potential injury risk, I'm not sure I want to be taking Porzingis there at the back end of the third round. I think he's probably more of a back end fourth round type of a guy. I just don't want to take that risk when it almost feels certain that he's going to miss games. And then one spot below him, they've got Tobias Harris. Harris averaged just 18 points a game as a member of the Sixers last season, and you can say that Jimmy Butler is not there, which is true. But again, Al Horford and Josh Richardson are no slouches. So Butler and Redick gone, Richardson and Horford in. Now, Harris probably does take a little bit of a step up in terms of the offensive pecking order, but I think that means Simmons takes some more shots. And Richardson and Horford are still going to take their shots. Harris struggles with defensive numbers. He's not going to be an assist guy, so he's not taking those numbers really away from where Butler did it last season. And I think that taking him at that level is probably going to be almost peak. The absolute best case scenario for Tobias Harris would see him end as the 37th best player for this coming season. Make sure if you are playing fantasy football, guys, listen to Locked On Fantasy Football with Vinny Iyer. You can find it on your favorite podcast provider, so go check that out right now. All right, let's have a look at the next bunch of guys who I think are ranked too high. Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. at 39. I love Triple J, you know that. There is just significant risk in looking at him as the 39th best player in fantasy. That's the end of the third round, start of the fourth round. Seems pretty crazy to me. The foul trouble was a real problem for him. What sort of minutes are they going to give Jackson this year with Jonas Valanciunas back, playing him at power forward as well? Players often can see their block rate decrease as they start to get more experience and avoid fouls, so that's a concern with Jackson there as well. I just don't think, again, it's not about could he be the 39th best player? Yeah, easy. He could be the 25th best player this season, and I wouldn't say, oh, that's ridiculous. It's more like, is there any value at picking this guy at 39? Is this the most likely outcome, and will I get any value back on it? And the answer to me is probably not at that sort of a spot for Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. Much like Lamarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan at 42 is too high to me. The return of Murray, the fact that DeRozan didn't really shoot very well at all. He can struggle at times, and we saw in the playoffs that there were players who actually performed better than him on the court. And I just worry that the fact that he put up career high in assists and rebounds last season, DeRozan, and we have the return of Murray, and we have the ascension of Derrick White, that could really impact his overall numbers, and I don't think 42 is the right spot for him. I put Chris Middleton here at number 47. I'm looking back, I'm not really sure that I'm that against having Chris Middleton at 47. He could be a better option than this. No doubt it's not an egregious spot, but last season he was the 58th best player, averaging 18, 6, and 4, only 31 minutes a night. You could argue that the East is weaker this season, so there might be more rest for Bucks players, and I think that puts a bit of a dampener on taking Middleton at that sort of a spot. They have Steven Adams at number 66. I think that is a little bit too high, not by much. I think Adams looks to have his usage and his rebound rate increase this season, but his free throws are always going to be a problem. His lack of blocks aren't enticing as a center as well. He was the 64th ranked player a couple of seasons ago, averaging 14 and 9. I think he can average double-digit rebounds this season, but the free throws are a real worry. Adams shot over the final 27 games of last season 35.5% from the line. He is getting worse and worse from the line. If you're punting that, then that is fine at that sort of an area, but I think that is probably a little bit too high, as is Marc Gasol at number 72. He struggled to be a top 100 player as a member of the Toronto Raptors, splitting time with Serge Ibaka. No reason for me to think that Gasol comes in and plays 30 minutes a night again, and I would not want to be risking a pick that high on Gasol. Aaron Gordon at 73. It's not too bad to have Aaron Gordon there. It's not where I would look to pick him. I'd probably look about 10, 15 spots later than that. I'm just not sure where he gets better from where he was last year. Will we ever get defensive numbers from Aaron Gordon? That seems a little bit unlikely at this point in his career. And I think while he can be okay at that area, does he up his usage? Does he up his scoring? Does he all of a sudden become a facilitator? I'm not so sure any of those things really happen. Another guy to talk about here, TJ Warren, Tony Warren Jr. of the Indiana Pacers. Ranked 95th on Yahoo. Now, this is assuming a couple of things. That his minutes stay in the 33-34 range, that he continues to be a 40% shooter and a high volume guy. I don't think either of those things stick. I think 30 to 31 minutes is more realistic, especially towards the end of the season once Oladipo returns, pushing Jeremy Lamb up to play more of the three as well. Doug McDermott, not that he's a big impact guy, but I don't see Warren playing much of the four, which will also reduce his rebound rate from last season, where he played almost exclusively as a power forward, and he wasn't a big rebounder then anyway. Really lack of defensive numbers from TJ. I think he's okay to pick, but I think 95, there are probably going to be better guys there at that spot who are worth looking at. And then at the back end, a bunch of guys who I think are probably a little bit too high as well. Not by too much, but Deandre Jordan at 97. I don't really think he's going to be playing anywhere near enough minutes to bring that value. Paul Millsap at 113. I worry that Millsap's not going to be a standard league guy. JJ Redick at 114. I think the minutes will be below 30 this season for the Pelicans. Brandon Clark of the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that's too high to take Clark. I really like Clark. You're well aware of that, but I just don't think the minutes are going to be there to take him at 116. Kyle Anderson and Taurean Prince back-to-back at 127 and 128. I think both of these guys are in significantly worse positions this season than they were last season, and I just don't see the minutes being there. And Jarrett Culver at 140. Look at that. I suppose that's fine for Culver there. Maybe he pushes in and starts and plays 30 minutes a night. I'm pretty skeptical of him doing that, of Culver doing that, and being actually a good enough shooter from anywhere on the court to actually bring those numbers into that sort of a level. So I wouldn't be taking him at that sort of a spot. Make sure you guys are checking out Locked On NFL across the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt Williamson, former NFL scout, is bringing all the information you need. So go and check out Locked On NFL on your favorite podcast provider. All right, let's have a look now at the guys that I think Yahoo have ranked too low. And I think there's a lot more information in these guys, or which guys I think they've missed out on at this point. Let's start with number 17, Jrue Holiday. And at the pointy end of drafts, you're never going to have guys who are out by 15 spots or anything like that. But I think Jrue Holiday is a borderline first-round guy, especially when we're considering the injuries, the Kawhi Leonards, the Joel Embiids in that first round. I don't think there's any problem with taking Jrue there. I think his minutes are going to be big. I think his usage is going to be big. He's going to provide defensive numbers. He's going to have efficiency. I think that Jrue Holiday is a borderline first-round guy. Yahoo's got him ranked 17th. I think that's too low. I would have him 4 or 5 spots ahead of that pretty comfortably. Same with Devin Booker, who Yahoo has at 18. It's not egregious, but I think we're looking at him at early second round versus mid to late second round. Yes, Ricky Rubio arriving is going to have some sort of an impact on his assists, but not that much. Remember, James Harden can still do 6 or 7 assists alongside Chris Paul. Booker is going to handle the ball a lot. He's going to have it in his hands. He is a point guard, despite what he might think and what the Suns might think. He is still going to get those assists. The scoring is going to be really still sky high, and I think that we're going to get, with a bit more talent around him, an increase in efficiency from Booker. So I'm big on him this season. I also think Trae Young at 25 is a little low, and people might think that's crazy. I've heard people say, I'm hoping I get Trae Young in the third round. If you're in a league with me, you're not getting Trae Young in the third round. I'm telling you now. I think Young is going to push up and be in discussion with guys like Beal and Jim Butler and even Devin Booker for that mid-second round type of a range player. We saw him be a top 20 player over the final couple of months of last season. I think he can take it an extra level and play more minutes a game. We've already heard Travis Schlenk say, hey, we want him to get to 35 minutes a night. He could easily average 25 and 10 this season. No reason he couldn't be 1.2 steals. And he did all that last season while not shooting very well. And I think that can take a big step forward. So I think Trae Young is a second round guy to me. One player who I think is massively undervalued on Yahoo, probably one of their biggest or their most egregious ones here to me, is Deangelo Russell at 46. To me, he's a third, maybe second round guy. It's going to be him and it's going to be Steph. They're the guys taking shots on this team. And remember, Russell, for as well as he played last year, played 30 minutes a night. There is almost zero situation where I can see him playing 30 minutes a night only for the Golden State Warriors. He might be one of those players whose value does dip in the March-April portion of the season when Clay comes back, but Clay's not coming back playing 35 minutes straight away. Russell's still going to get those minutes. He's still going to get his shots. He can generate steals. He can hit threes at a big volume, and he's going to get an opportunity to do that. He's going to get assists as well. I think that he is a third round guy. Maybe he can push even into the top 20 this season. Kevin Love at 48 is an interesting one. If Kevin Love stays healthy, he will obliterate that number. I wanted to put him on this list just to mention him. Of course, the injuries for him are a real concern. Getting traded is a real concern, but I think there is value in Kevin Love at 48. And I think you can still draft him and feel pretty confident about it. Robert Covington, sites continue to disrespect him, and I think that Yahoo has gone a bit low on him there at number 50. Covington, a guy that gets steals, playing at power forward is going to help his block rate and rebound rate. He hits threes. He's going to have a pretty big role on this Minnesota Timberwolves team, who doesn't really have another power forward that's going to be challenging him. Yes, they've got Jordan Bell and Noah Vonleh, but they're not in the same category as what Covington is. The steals alone carry his value, but adding blocks and rebounds and threes and some scoring, as well as really strong free throw shooting, I think he has value there. And Otto Porter is one that to me is too low as well. Now, in my initial projections, Porter is ranked pretty high. He came out ranked pretty high, but I think people, again, have to realize that when I do projections, I don't go through and go, this guy needs to be 30, this guy's 31, this guy's 32, this guy's 33. That's not the way we do it. We go through and look at everyone, project all their stats out, balance it within the team. So it's not that everyone just gets all these shots, and we'll talk about that with other players at other points. But when I look at Porter, the way that the Bulls used him at the end of last season, they involved him quite a bit in terms of usage. His steal rate has been consistently high through his career, and he just had this weird efficiency drop-off last season when he'd been a 50+% field goal guy for each of the previous 3 seasons. And I think he can get maybe not back to 50% with an increased usage, but we saw how misused he was in Washington, where he was getting like 12% usage. If he goes back to 18% usage and that true shooting of 57-58%, Porter, to me, leaps way above that. And we know about his lack of turnovers, and I don't give a shit about the lack of turnovers, but that actually boosts his value even further if that's something you care about. So I think Otto Porter at 53 is too low over on Yahoo. Don't know why I said Yahoo like that. At number 54, the Italian cock, the rooster, Danilo Gallinari. Injuries for him, yes, they are a problem. But man, who is going to shoot on this Oklahoma City Thunder team? Gallinari, to me, is a massive steal value, and this is just with me being relatively conservative in terms of minutes played as well. He's going to, I believe, lead this team in scoring very comfortably. He's going to hit threes. He gets to the line a shit ton, and he's going to have the ball in his hands more to do that, and he shoots an elite free throw percentage. So that's scoring, threes, and free throw percentage is enough to give him value. Add in that he can get some assists. Maybe he improves his playmaking on this team as well. To me, at 54, he is a no-brainer target to look at. 56, Jonas Valanciunas. Valanciunas was like a top 30 guy in his stretch in Memphis. He's going to play, again, being relatively conservative. 29 minutes a game for Memphis can easily push him to be a 20 and 11 sort of a player with really, really strong percentages, excellent for roto leagues, can block some shots as well. To me, at 56, there's almost no hesitation there. 59, Lowery Marketing. I think that Marketing can be better than that pretty clearly, otherwise I wouldn't have him on this list. He had that red-hot run in February where he was doing everything, fell off. I don't think he can maintain that level consistently, and the lack of defense does hold him back. But being a 21 and 10 sort of a player, which I believe he can be with an elite free throw percentage and hitting a lot of threes, that provides top 50 value, and at the moment you can get him outside the top 50. As you can with big old Bam Bam Adebayo.
Bam, 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 bam.
Adebayo is currently ranked on Yahoo at 64. I think that he has got the top 50 on lock. He is the starting center for the Heat. He will be the starting center from the Heat, and I think if he plays 30 minutes a night, that's the under. He's definitely not going to be playing only 30 minutes a night with very limited other options there. Udonis Haslem, Kelly Olynyk maybe, but I think Olynyk starts next to Adebayo. He's an excellent roto target. He does everything apart from hit threes. And even that might come for Adebayo. I think that is significant value for him. I said Deangelo Russell probably the biggest value play. I think Derrick Favors actually is, if I look at it realistically. 77 for Favors. This is a guy who last season played only 23 minutes a night for the Utah Jazz. 23 minutes a night. That is not very much at all, playing out of position at power forward. Now he comes in. He's the starting center for the New Orleans Pelicans. Last season in those 23 minutes a night, he was the 90th ranked player. I think that 30 minutes for him a night is a conservative estimate. I think that he can score. Shit, I know he can score. He can rebound. He can get steals. He can block shots. He can hit his shots at an efficient rate. To me, he is an absolute lock for the top 50, probably the top 40, and getting him at 77 feels like theft. Big Terry Rozier. Now, as you would know, I'm not the biggest Terry Rozier fan. I don't think he's very good. But at 85 on Yahoo, and I think they may have actually adjusted that number down to 83, so they are bringing it in still. It's still too low. Like, he needs to be higher than this. Who is going to take shots on this Charlotte team? He can't shoot. He's going to take them. He's not going to hit them. But he can't hit shots, but he's going to take a lot. He's going to score. He's going to rebound. He's going to get some assists. He's just going to put up value by the fact that they paid him too much money, and he's going to be on the court, and he's going to get those opportunities. So to me, Rozier, despite being frustrating as a player and being considerably overpaid, he's going to exceed that number of 85. As is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, coming in at number 91. Gilgeous-Alexander, I believe, will start from day one at shooting guard. If Chris Paul gets traded, he'll move over to point guard, but they are going to pump minutes into him. They are going to pump usage into him. So, again, as I said with Gallinari, someone has to take the shots. Gilgeous-Alexander showed an ability to be an elite defender for a rookie already, and to come in and be efficient as a scorer. He's going to get that opportunity again. I think there's an outside chance he averages 20 points a game this season. He probably doesn't, but I don't think he's going to be too far off it. And I think 91 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a little bit too low. Derek White at 92. I think White can establish himself as the best guard almost on this team this season. Yes, I know DeMar DeRozan exists. I wouldn't be surprised if Derek White is the best guard on this team. He can pass, he can shoot a little bit, he can play defense really well, get steals, get blocks, be efficient as well. His fantasy value, I think, is going to take a big step forward, and the fact that he's ranked 90th, and I think he can be a top 70, maybe even top 50 player this season, there's some value there with him. Number 101, Kevon Looney. I think Looney's going to get the bulk of the minutes in Golden State. I could be wrong on this. There could be Willie Cauley-Stein, but I think it's going to be Looney, a guy, again, who provides really good defensive numbers, elite field goal percentage, can score a bit, showed a little bit with the ball in his hands and some passing also. I think he can outplay that value. Same with Delon Wright in Dallas. Now, they've got him ranked 103, which is not terrible, but I think there is value still in Delon Wright at that spot. As the starting point guard next to Luka Doncic, I think Delon's going to put up, much like Derek White, put up those defensive numbers, which get a little bit lost in the shuffle sometimes, but adding that block per game, which White can do, and Wright could get to that level, is still really valuable from a fantasy point of view. I think Miles Bridges and Nick Batum at 109 and 110 for Charlotte, much like Terry Rozier, somebody's going to have to do something on these teams, and I think both of these guys are pretty clear top 100 guys. I have Miles Bridges I believe I have him above where Nick Batum is. I think he can be a top 75-ish type of guy for this season. Miles Batum should be at least back into the top 90. And then we go to a couple of point guards. Number 124, Tomas Satoransky of the Chicago Bulls. In times when John Wall has been out in the past, Satoransky's put up top 60 numbers. I don't necessarily think, I don't think he's going to be a top 60 guy this season, but I think he's the starting point guard for the Bulls. I think he can be efficient, generate some assists, get some steals, rebounds, score, hit threes, do all of those things, and definitely provide more value than 124. Same with the iron shoulder Goran Dragic. Now, Dragic wasn't the same guy last season, but I think 132, is just dropping him down too low. I think he starts. I don't think they're going to put him on the bench and put Justice Winslow in there at point guard. I think we're going to get some value here out of Dragic. Yes, Jimmy Butler around does have an impact on him, but I think at 132, there is still some value in him. Now we're looking at guys who just are way out of the rankings and way down too low. I think Zack Collins at 137, he's got a chance to be a top 100 player this season. Davis Bertans at 148, he's a great late round pick. He could be the starting power forward for the Washington Wizards who hit some threes and get some rebounds. Eric Gordon at 163, no idea what he's doing at 163. He probably won't start at shooting guard. And yes, Russell Westbrook is around, and that's going to take some usage. But Gordon at 120th best player, maybe. There's still value in him there. I think there's value in Jakob Poeltl at 168. If they go with those big lineups with Aldridge and Poeltl at the 4 and the 5, big field goal percentage, can block shots and grab rebounds. I think Poeltl has value at that spot. So does Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers at 170. I think he's got a chance to be the third best fantasy rookie this season. The minutes are pretty strong. Can he get some assists? Can he maintain efficiency? They're all the questions we have for Garland at this point. I do think that he can exceed those expectations, and I'd be more than happy to take a risk on him over someone like Brandon Clark at the back end of a fantasy draft. And we all shit on Andrew Wiggins, rightfully so, but 189 is too low. It just is. He's not that bad of a player. There is still hope for him to get better than this. Maybe just getting that efficiency back to where it was a couple of years ago, because it's not like we haven't seen Wiggins have efficient shooting seasons. Can he handle the ball a little bit more this season? I don't know, but even last season, Wiggins was the 147th ranked player. Are we expecting him to be worse this year? That's where I don't really get that one. And Rui Hachimura, I wasn't a fan of the pick. I don't think Hachimura is necessarily going to be a good NBA player, but I do think that he's going to have a role immediately, and I think he can be better than this. And on a Wizards team that needs people who will score, he can score. And to me, there's enough value in Rui Hachimura to at least consider him well below, or well in front of pick 203. Some other guys who are buried down in the ranks, the Baconator Dwayne Bacon at 226. He can be inefficient, but he's going to get opportunities and he's going to score. Luke Kennard, the Duck, at 235. Probably a fringe standard league guy. Marcus Morris at 244. I don't love Marcus Morris's fantasy game, and how he fits with the Knicks remains to be seen, but I'm pretty bloody sure he's going to be better than 244. Same with Jay Crowder at 258 and Josh Okogie at 283. I think Okogie is probably going to be the starter for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of course, it could be Culver, but Okogie was putting up some interesting steal numbers, and that alone means he's better than 283. These are more deeper league guys. Devontae Graham of the Charlotte Hornets is the backup point guard there. And I've said this before, I reckon there's a chance he could be better than Terry Rozier. He won't play over Terry Rozier. But at 380 in those deeper leagues, he is a value guy who gets 18 to 20 minutes a night behind Rozier and alongside him. And Glenn Robinson III, the little dog, there's an outside chance he's the starting small forward for the Golden State Warriors. Now, he has been absolutely shitful since that ankle injury ruined his career a couple of years ago. But there is an opportunity, and at 386, that puts him basically on a free agent wire in every single league, and I don't think that should be where Glenn Robinson III is sitting. And to wrap things up, some other names that are buried very, very far down in the ranks. Markelle Fultz, 417th. We don't even know when Fultz is going to play, but I think that there is especially if you're in a best ball league, you're in a league with benches where you can stash guys. I think Fultz is going to start games for the Magic this season. We know that if he starts games, the production's going to be there, and if he gets to 30 minutes, so he is worth looking down there. Anthony Simons at 486 as well for the Portland Trailblazers. 20 minutes a night, maybe more for those Blazers. If Lillard or McCollum goes down, he's going to be forced into a larger role. I think there's value in him. Vincent Poirier, I didn't pronounce that, sure. All my French listeners tell me how badly I screwed that up. Center for the Celtics, Enes Kanter, Daniel Tice, the Rock DJ, Robbie Williams. Are any of them guaranteed to be better than Poirier? It's just the fact that we haven't seen him play over in the States to know, but I think he can be a deeper league impact guy. Same as his teammate Carson Edwards, who I think will be a rotation guy from night one for the Celtics, taking that backup spot behind Kemba Walker. Terrence Davis for the Raptors, I think he's going to be a rotation guy from night one as well, and he can score. And then another Celtics player, a lot of rookies here who are down a little bit too low. Grant Williams, I think he's an opening night rotation player as a backup power forward, and you know that I do really think that Williams can have some long-term fantasy value. And then another one who might be off everyone's radar, but if you're in a very deep league, Eric Pascal of the Golden State Warriors, he, to me, is going to be Draymond Green's backup from night one. That's not going to have an impact for most fantasy leagues, but he's definitely not going to be the 608th ranked fantasy player, considering there's not even 600 players or 500 players in the NBA. So that's another one of those ones. In those deeper leagues, you just got to scroll down to find these guys, Edwards and Davis and Williams and Pascal, Simons, Fultz, because they're going to be useful in those deeper leagues. But if you're just going off default lists, they're not even going to appear. So go down to the bottom and check those guys out down there. That'll do it for today's show. I'm going to be looking at ESPN's ranks, and God, ESPN ranks, there's a lot more wrong with those ones than there is with Yahoo, so I'm going to be talking about those tomorrow. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at redrock_Beeble and on Instagram at LockedOnFantasyBasketball. On YouTube, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss an episode as well. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Torian Prince.